No.
No, that's. I don't think I have one.
Okay, well, we'll give you.
Hey, Katie.
Oh, I saw them.
Only 6?
My card.
Oh.
Somebody pray that I find my card.
Yeah. Well, this is the last month. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And it's full.
I-
It's got about 6.
I promise that if you tell her how many punches you have, she'll honor that.
Was she on it?
Yes, she will. Yeah, our customer service is, top tier, top tier. All right, yeah, we got the learners up front, and then we got the naughty kids in the back. All of us good Lutherans, right? All right. Welcome to the inflammation workshop. This is probably the most important workshop of the year, just from a perspective of inflammation is the one thing that we know causes virtually every known condition. Everything that we die from, inflammation is at the root cause of it. I'm going to go a little deeper tonight, and I'm going to go the next step, right? When we ask why, we also need to ask the why to the answer to our why question. Why is that inflammation there? And inflammation has causes, and they're not just genetic. We're not just born with genetic markers in our DNA that say Jim's going to have this much inflammation in his life, or Sharon's going to have this much inflammation in her life, or Debbie's going to have this much inflammation in her life. It's lifestyle. Inflammation is lifestyle. And so you guys know me. I'm going to tell a lot of stories, but let's tell a little story on myself. So how many of you were here last year when I ran the Good Life Halvesy? The Good Life Halvesy, right? So go back about a decade. I would run, a couple half marathons. Yeah, I was never a big, I wasn't going to win a half marathon. I'm too big for that. But I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed running. I enjoyed it, probably because of my background in soccer and basketball. I was fit and in shape. I could run a long distance, and it was good. However, the year before, so 2 years back, I actually had broken my big toe playing basketball. And so I had kind of taken a break from running just because you need that time to recuperate. You can't put that much weight on your big toe. And so I started training, and I trained, did about 3 months on my own. And then I had to start doing some cross training with the gym to break through a couple plateaus so that I could get the full 13.1 miles. And when it came to race day, it was the worst race day ever. I don't know. It was like the temperature outside now, but raining. So it was really rough, really hard on me. But I did it. In spite of the lightning that came down, I finished the race. Even though they canceled the race, I finished it. I was like, I'm running towards my house anyways. Why would I stop and go back? It's further away. Plus, I had already sent my keys to the finish line to wait for me. So, and my wife was supposed to come pick me up, but she heard that it was canceled. So she's like, oh, he's just going to come home. So, yeah, anyways. So I get done with this race and I hurt. I started having all sorts of empathy for you guys. You get down on my table and you're like, oh, Dr. J. And I'm like, oh, I feel you. You know, back, hips, knees, ankles, everything was inflamed, right? So what did I do? I crawled into the tub, got some hot water going because I was so cold.
Oh, yeah.
I put some Epsom salts in there, put a couple drops of lavender oil in there as well. And then I started warming up some bone broth. Now, just like this time of year, we also had some turkey carcass that had boiled down into some bone broth. And I proceeded over the next 24 hours to drink a gallon of bone broth. Right now, 13.1 miles for someone that's not really running in a while is not easy. That's going to wear down some joints. And I didn't honestly lose that much weight. I thought I was going to lose more weight going into it and it would be easier on my body. I only lost about 5 pounds during the training. I added more muscle than I took off weight and body fat. And so it was really hard on my joints. But at the end, 24 hours later, I got up and I was completely out of pain. It was like I hadn't even run a race, even though my feet were beat up, like they had healed to the point that they were ready to go. They were like, part of me was like, I should go back out there and run. And then I looked at the temperature. It's like, nah, I'm not going to do that again for a while. And I actually didn't sign up for this year because of how cold it was after last year. But really, everything that I felt, that was inflammation, right? And what is inflammation there for? Well, inflammation is there for healing, to tell your body what not to do, and ultimately to help you heal faster. You know, it's really there. And so, you know, you look at us, and we got new headshots. So I wanted to share these with you. We've got an incredible new team to support us while we're going down this journey of health together. You guys might not know this, but Matt is actually a certified personal trainer, and he's going to be doing workouts tailored specifically to you guys on Thursday evenings and then whenever else he can fit them in. So we're going to have 2 to 3 times a week where you guys can come and get personalized physical fitness classes. Cheryl, she's been working in the nursing field for the better part of 4 decades. She's been teaching pharmacology and pathology and God knows what else for the last 2 decades, better part of 2 decades. And of course, me, I've been graduated now almost 10 years. I've been doing chiropractic for about 12 years. Yeah, we just love to do this. We're trying to build out a team that can transform healthcare. And we're trying to transform healthcare because we know every time you go to the doctor, you end up sicker. You have to recover from what they do to you, even if what they do for you is necessary to heal, right? And every time you take a drug, you have to heal from the drug as much as you have to heal from the thing that the drug was there to treat. And so our mission is to really transform healthcare, not just here, but right now across the country. There's over 350 different offices that are learning this same stuff with tens, some of them hundreds, some of them turned it into just a full church worth of people where they're actually teaching the same information. So this isn't just the 10, 15 people that are sitting here tonight. This is nationwide, and it's a much bigger movement than just what you see around here right now. So let's dive deep. Let's really get into this. And I want to start with what is inflammation. So let's start with the most basic level. When you step off of a curb wrong and you hit the side of your ankle and it twists, what's the first thing that happens? Inflammation, but what's the first sign of inflammation that you see? Swelling, right? And what is that? That's blood flowing to the area, right? Now, what's that blood bringing with it? Nutrients, white blood cells, red blood cells, right? Oxygen, all the things that your body needs to heal. It's also, those white blood cells are a huge component of your immune system, because let's say you were to tear through the skin and you were to cut. What would you want present on hand? You want your immune system there to recognize bacteria, recognize microbes, recognize viruses, and say, hey, these are bad. We need to respond to these appropriately. We don't want these in the bloodstream for very long. So what's our natural response to this inflammation in the ankle? Well, if you go through any sort of medical training, it's RICEs, right? Rest, ice, compression, elevation, and support. Well, what do those things do? Let's leave aside the rest for a second, because rest is actually the one thing that really does work. Ice, what's ice doing? Decreases the blood flow. Decreases the blood flow. Is that going to accelerate the healing process or decrease the healing process? Yeah, it decreases the body's natural healing process. What does compression do to it? Reduces the blood flow again. What does elevation do to it? It reverses the blood flow and makes it harder for blood to get out there. What does support do to it? Well, if it's broken, it can actually help in the healing process. Rest and support are probably the only ones that work. The anti-inflammatory medication, what's that going to do? Block the blood flow. Healing is in the blood, right? Especially if we're talking about the immune system. And a lot of you were at the immunity makeover and you learned all about how the immune system responds. So much of that response is in the blood flow. So if everything that we've been trained to do as medical providers actually stops the healing process, what do we need to do as the people that are being subject to this? Yeah, change it, right? Because nobody's out there that's going to intervene there. I can't be there every time you sprain an ankle. You have to be the ones that make the decision on what to do. Now, that inflammation, that's good inflammation, right? What would happen if I was to continue to step off that curb the same way and sprain my ankle that same way over and over and over and over and over and over and over again every single day? Would that inflammation continue to be good inflammation?
Would the inflammation continue?
To be good inflammation. It's the right response, but it's in too much of a dose, right? Yeah. But would an anti-inflammatory medication be the answer in that case? Would Rice's be the answer in that case? No, what would be the answer? Stop stepping off the curb, right? Yeah. Right? Or change your ergonomics of how your foot lands, or put a brace around it so that you can start getting there and say, yeah, stop it, right? That's the answer. Stop it. And so that's the difference between acute and chronic inflammation. So most people, when you sprain your ankle, are not going to go out there and do it again right away. Most people. There's some college athletes that might, but you guys won't, right? You sprain your ankle, you're going to, very much baby that and make sure that you don't hurt it again. You're going to listen to the pain, and the pain's the sign that, hey, we're not going to do things that hurt anymore. But when it comes to the inflammation that we create with things like diet, all right, this pile of sugar that we have out here, we don't listen to our bodies, do we? No, and for multiple reasons. A lot of it is because it tastes good. There's dopamine receptors in the brain that say, hey, this is actually really good for us. There's even some genetic things in there where genetically we've been trained over millennia to say that things that are sweet are actually good for us and safe to eat and are not poisonous. Now it's the opposite, right? Now, if you put it in your mouth and it's sweet, it's like, oh, that must be bad for me. But we're not genetically trained that way. And so our bodies just go back to this like, hey, this is good. This is sweet. This is like fruit. This is like honey. This is not just a treat, but it actually has nutrients that I need in there. And so then that inflammation that hits our gut, it starts creating chronic disease. And so that's the difference, right? We keep going back to the well. We keep stepping off of that curb over and over and over again. And this is part of the reason why the Times magazine, several years back, they did this whole special on inflammation is the cause of all chronic disease. And it's lifestyle, right? Because when you continue to do it, it's really going to break it down. So dietary, lifestyle, or other causes. There are other things that do it as well. But if you do have chronic inflammation, it's that indicator of chronic stresses, just like the ankle example, right? If your ankle doesn't stop swelling, guess what? You probably shouldn't be walking on it. You should be resting it more. You should support it more when you do get out. You should be doing those things. Some of you as good a chiropractor as I am, you've created a bulging disc under care in the office. And you've come in and you're like, doctor, shake my back. And I'm like, okay, so we're going to do the warm-ups still, but we're not going to do the ones that make it hurt worse, right? You've heard me say that, or if you've hurt an ankle or hurt a knee or hurt a, elbow, I said, what did I say? I say, try to use it as much as you can, but when it hurts more, stop. And that's easy to do when it's like, oh, it's an elbow, it's an ankle, it's a knee, it's a back. But when it comes to food, there's not as much of that sign, or at least they're a little more subtle with the signs that we have. So that chronic inflammation isn't the problem, the stressors that create it are the problem, right? The lifestyle that creates it. So that inflammation is a warning sign of symptoms or stressors. So an obvious sign of inflammation would be something like a diagnosis. So, obviously something like arthritis. If anybody's been diagnosed with arthritis, that's a sign of chronic inflammation. But what's the cause of it? What created that inflammation? Like literally, the word is joint inflammation in Latin. Where did that joint inflammation come from? Well, in the case of arthritis, it comes from Wolff's Law. When a joint's out of position, it degenerates at a rate of 7% per year. And it's just a degenerative arthritis that creates that inflammation. The inflammation is actually there in response to it being out of position and the body trying to heal it, right? The blood going to the knee is actually trying to heal it. But when you don't actually fix the position, that chronic inflammation breaks the joint down. All right, what else breaks it down? Well, the cortisol, the stress response that your body has. When you get cortisol in your bloodstream, that actually breaks the joint down too. And guess what happens when you hurt yourself? When there's injury, you get cortisol in that area as a pain suppressant. It's a boost of adrenaline, a boost of epinephrine or norepinephrine to allow yourself to be able to get through the crisis and get back to your life. So we have to go beyond the inflammation, though. We have to go back to the cause. What's another one? Something like an autoimmune condition. If you have allergies or asthma, what is that? That's your immune system responding too much. It's overactivated immune system to things that for a normal healthy person aren't actually creating problems. Why is that? Well, it can be a nervous system problem. It can be a gut issue. It can be a dietary issue. And if all we do is we suppress the symptoms of the inflammation, we just take the albuterol or take the steroid inhaler, and that's all we do to take care of the asthma, is the asthma ever going to heal? No, because we're not addressing the cause of the asthma. We're not addressing the cause of the allergies or the food sensitivities, right? And so we need to go beyond. We're getting to the cause of this. A major cause of this is the SAD diet. What does SAD stand for? Standard American Diet. And there's two major problems with the SAD diet. No, that's been in the natural health world for over a decade now, probably two. So I'm not taking credit for that, but good try. No, so the two major things that are wrong with the standard American diet are sugar and rancid oils. Sugar, because just taking in more than 2 grams of sugar in an hour is more than your body can handle from an insulin level and in your liver. Excess of 2 grams of sugar in an hour, your body's going to turn it into fat or glycogen. Store it for later so you can break it down and turn it into more sugar. Sugar is not an essential micronutrient. Your brain can use it for energy. Your body can use it for energy. And it can use it really efficiently. But if you get excess of 2 grams in an hour, guess what your body's going to do? It's going to turn it into fat. And then you get the fatty liver. And actually, excess over time works very much like alcoholism. It puts so much stress on your liver that you get fatty liver disease, and it really breaks it down. Rancid oils. So average American gets 350 pounds of sugar in a year. Rancid oils, we'll just take omega-3s and omega-6s, right? And for those of you that have been here before, omega-3s and omega-6s, those are essential fatty acids. Your body needs them, but it needs them in a specific ratio. That ratio is somewhere between 1-to-1 and 4-to-1, with omega-6s being the more prevalent or more dominant one. However, in the United States of America, because of the kinds of oils that we consume, the average ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s is not 1-to-1, it's not 2-to-1, it's not 4-to-1, it's not even 8-to-1. It's 17-to-1 omega-6s to omega-3s. And it's because of the types of oils that we have and the way that those foods were prepared. I mean, even just looking at our favorite meat. What's our favorite meat? Beef, right? It's what's for dinner, right? I mean, we're in Nebraska. Yeah, this is the corn state, but even more than that, we actually are the nation's largest producer of beef. So steak, Omaha steaks, very famous. I can't say that I don't enjoy me a good steak every now and again, but our cows, they're at least that. Most of them are approaching 30-to-1 in that ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s. It's because of the way that we feed them, the way that we process them. When you get a grass-fed cow, what's that ratio? 1-to-1 to 4-to-1. Cows that were raised the way that God created them to be raised have that right ratio. And so when we eat them, we get that right ratio inside of us, but we don't. Our dairy, our butter, our cheese, our beef, it's so inflammatory that we become inflammatory when we eat it. We are what we eat, and we are what we ate. So that definitely matters in the terms of long-term stress and inflammation there. But guess what? Did Dr. Jake do great this holiday season? No, I didn't. I mean, I did better than a lot of people, but it's the season for sugar, right? So one of the things that I did, so I don't remember which day it was. I think it was maybe Wednesday last week. My family came over and we went straight from the office to a Christmas party for one of my wife's reps for her company. She's an architect. She gets lots of samples, lots of design input from third-party vendors. And they did a beautiful Christmas party. They had like a real Santa that actually looked and acted like real Santa Claus that was really giving out gifts. And they had holiday cookies, and they had hot chocolate, and they had mulled wine, and they had candy canes. And I mean, that was it. We hadn't eaten supper. I was empty stomach, had worked hard all day. Can Dr. Jake say no in a crisis situation like that? No, I mean, I can't. Like this is one of my weaknesses is self-control in the moment. If I go into a situation prepared for the decisions I'm going to make, and I'll show you the keys to this in a minute. If I go into the situation prepared, I can do great. My Thanksgiving dinner was fantastic. If you guys look at what I ate, it was basically a paleo meal. I mean, everything in there was clean. It would be considered on the core plan because we had real potatoes instead of like cauliflower mashed potatoes. But everything was low glycemic. It was naturally raised, free range. I mean, the organic, potatoes, the organic sweet potatoes, the organic carrots, the organic celery. Like no pesticides in this meal whatsoever, unless they happen to be organic pesticides that I didn't quite wash off. My desserts, my apple pie, it was straight out of the Max Living cookbook. The pumpkin pie right out of the Max Living cookbook, and it was delicious. But I was prepared. I spent the whole week preparing for that meal so I could succeed in one of the most dangerous holidays of the year from a nutrition perspective, from a lifestyle perspective. And my family raved about it. They loved it. Like even my kids weren't complaining, which I mean that must have been a miracle in and of itself, right? I mean, you guys have kids, you know how it is. The way they felt, the way the food tasted, it was just good. And my kids, I have also raised them to know what good food tastes like. Most kids, they have one of these poured on top of their bowl of cereal for breakfast. I mean, I used to do that as a kid, like 3 scoops of sugar on top of my frosted cinnamon wheats or whatever. Yeah. So I mean, but for most of us, like even just the Thanksgiving meal itself, grandma baked the cookies, or mom made the cake, or cousin Sally had the special recipe for the pie, and we indulged. And you look at the holiday season in general, just Christmas Day, we will consume as much as 158 grams of sugar on that day, unless we're prepared. Unless we're prepared, yeah. I think it's 3.
Is it 4 grams?
1 teaspoon equals 4 grams. Yeah, that I wrote it down so I wouldn't have to remember it. Right? But yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, break it down, right? Yeah, and so if you average, yeah, about 40 teaspoons. Yeah, I couldn't have that many cups of coffee, right? Yeah, and this is part of the reason, like it's not the turkey that makes us tired. It's all the sugar that we're consuming. And if you're getting anything out of a box, I mean, just look at like stuffing, right? Or I mean, let's say you have a marinara dish in there, and it's got a couple of tablespoons of marinara sauce on it. Well, there's 13 grams of sugar. It does have 3 grams of fiber, so only 10 net carbs, right? Yep, you're a third of the way there to what your daily allowance should intake, and that's the good stuff, right? That's not even, I'm just going to have 1 Coke with my meal, right? That's how many? 16 and a quarter teaspoons per serving, and the serving size is 20 ounces. It's always going to be the bottle, right? And in the case of Coke, in some things it's not. Like the Prego, that's parts of the jar. That's not the whole jar. The can of corn, that's not the whole can of corn. That's parts of the can of corn. We add sugar to so much stuff. My daughter, she saw this and she's like, "Oh, cowboy beans, these are my favorite." And I'm like, "Yeah, that has how much sugar? It's 24 net carbs per serving. And how many servings in a can? About 3.5. And that's healthy food, right? It's incredible just how much sugar is in stuff. And when I say carbohydrates, that carbohydrates are sugar. That's what your body turns them into immediately, and it responds the same way in your body. You can give yourself diabetes eating, canned corn and beans, right? But it's better for you than the other stuff. But what's even better is get it in its raw, natural state, right? So how are we going to succeed? Oh, yeah, but I don't eat sugar, Dr. Jake. Yeah, you do. Look at some of these things. So I don't know that these are all the names, but these are 56 of the names of things that are hidden in our foods that are sugar. And it's just there to make it taste good. And I'm not going to read it to you, but I mean, you just look at all the different ways that they hide it in our foods. If I was to pick up the Prego right now and I was to turn around, I would find at least 3 of those in there, right? Because it doesn't look like there's as much sugar if they break it up into different chunks. So they'll put a little bit of honey, a little bit of date syrup, and a little bit of table sugar. And then it's there, and it creates that inflammation. And then artificial sweeteners. I had a patient asking me about this earlier. So what about the artificial sweeteners? What about, the Coke Zero or the Coke Zero Sugar, or, some of these things that, use the art. He even said, what about xylitol? What if they made Coke with xylitol? It's like they're really, when you trick your body by saying this is sweet, this is sugary, but then there's nothing attached to that sweetness, there's still an insulin response. In fact, stevia, which is a great alternative to table sugar, has 4 times the insulin response in your body than table sugar does. Yeah. Now it's 500 times sweeter than sugar, so you don't have to use near as much. So I only put like a couple drops in my coffee, but it's not 100% safe. It's a huge step in the right direction. That's way better for you than sorbitol or aspartame or NutraSweet or any of these artificial sweeteners, because they come with like aspartic acid, but it breaks down into formaldehyde in the body and creates that carcinogenic effect. So we want to avoid artificial sweeteners as much as possible. And the sweets that we actually want to have are the ones that come with the fiber. When God created sugar cane, did he make a mistake? No. He created it with as much fiber in there that's going to limit you from taking in too much. When God created honey, did he make a mistake? No, because he created bees to surround and protect it from us, not from us, but protect us from it as much as anything. He knew the dangers of doing anything too much, right? If you get out of balance, mind, body, spirit in any area, it's going to become unhealthy for you. Right? God made us wholly physical, wholly psychological, and wholly spiritual. Like all 3 of those components need to work together. Yes, ma'am.
Did you say stevia has 4 times?
The insulin effect that table sugar does, but it's 500 times sweeter, and so you can use way less. And so that's why it's a safer sweetener than sugar is for diabetics. But it's not safe, right? Nothing is safe. I mean, even oranges. Like if you eat a whole orange and you're a diabetic, it can still create an insulin response that'll put you in a diabetic coma if you eat too many of them. 1 probably won't, but 2 might, 3, maybe more of a chance, 4. Now you're really getting there. And I had a friend's mom who did that to herself. She got a big box of Florida oranges and ate like 8 of them all at once, type 2 diabetic, and had to go to the hospital. It's not good, not a good situation. So what is the solution? Well, you got to remove the stressors, right? Remove the stressors. What are the stressors? What are the causes of inflammation? So let's give you some tools. And so I'm gonna give you the top 3 anti-inflammatory foods, but more than that, I want to give you the principles, because someday I'm not going to be here for you. You're going to have to take this out on your own. You're going to have to teach your family. So I want you to learn how to think as much as the data that I'm presenting to you, right? So number 1 is berries. And the reason why I'm saying berries number 1 is because they're packed with antioxidants, they're packed with fiber, and they're packed with vitamins. Now, are berries the only food on this planet? that is packed with antioxidants, fiber, and vitamins. No, there's not at all, right? We want lots of foods that are packed with antioxidants, fiber, and vitamins. What's another example? Broccoli, great example. Loaded with antioxidants, loaded with fiber, and loaded with vitamins. Antioxidants, one of the biggest causes of inflammation in our body, not just sugar, free radicals. What are free radicals? Well, free radicals are those electrons that get knocked off of their ring. They're known carcinogens. They're known to cause cancer. That's why we don't take too many x-rays on anybody, right? That's why we limit it to low dosage amounts, because we don't want free radicals bouncing around out there. But what binds to free radicals is antioxidants. Antioxidants, vitamin C, vitamin E, selenium. I mean, just laundry list of antioxidants out there. Berries have a lot of them. A lot of them. Fiber. What's the role of fiber? Well, it's the thing that makes sugar not dangerous, right? It's the thing that allows us to eat sweet food and it not to harm us. It also protects our gut. It keeps you from developing leaky gut. It keeps the mucosal membrane, keeps it thick, and it allows the food to move through your digestive system. It's an absolute essential, and Americans are one of the worst countries in the world at getting fiber into our diet. And then vitamins, right? We know there are essential vitamins, the ones that our bodies can't produce on their own, but there's so many more than just that. When you get real whole foods and you get a variety of them, not just blueberries and not just raspberries and not just Granny Smith apples, but you start getting a variety of plants and a variety of colors. Eat the rainbow, so to speak, right? That's when you start unlocking the power of vitamins inside your body. Next is going to be wild caught fish. And one of the main reasons why I say wild caught here is because you see almost none of the benefits. In fact, you'll see the opposite of benefits when you get farmed fish. So a good way to tell is, does your fish say Pacific or does it say Atlantic? Atlantic is going to be farmed, Pacific is going to be wild.
Did you know that we know what Times grocery, you know what it's going to be? This is an international.
Oh, really?
So I was wondering what that maybe you could get some wild there.
Maybe.
Have you heard it yet?
That's
hard to
yeah.
find. Where do you find that?
Costco has it. Costco's a great source for that. Everywhere I've gone, I've seen it, but you have to look for it. You go in and you look for it. Whole Foods definitely has it, but Hy-Vee has it. Yeah. I think Super Saver has it. I think, yeah. But at places that aren't specializing in the healthy foods, it's usually more expensive than places like Natural Grocers or Whole Foods or Red Clover, some of the other specialty stores. But the reason why we say wild caught fish is it has tons of essential nutrients, such as your amino acids. What are amino acids? Well, they're the building blocks of protein. Your essential amino acids, even better, the ones that your body can't produce on its own. Omega-3 fatty acids, those are, again, the essential fatty acids. So what would also qualify in this category? So salmon, but let's go outside the fish. Yeah. I already mentioned it. Grass-fed beef, right? Yeah, it has all those same things. It has the essential nutrients like amino acids and omega-3 fatty acids. How about a free-range turkey? Also, buffalo, yeah, a lot of these foods actually have it in there, but when they're raised the right way. You can't go out to Buffalo Wild Wings or the Brazilian steakhouse and expect that the meat that you're eating is adding and creating less inflammation, when in fact it's probably doing the opposite, because the sauces and marinades that they put on it are loaded with sugars, and then it was raised in a way that creates an omega-3, omega-6 imbalance. And then on top of it, they're taking processed oils that are becoming rancid even before they hit your body, and they create more inflammation in your bloodstream as well. So that's category number 2. Category number 3 is leafy greens. Right, so this probably could have gone in category number 1. This is a crossover for sure, but again, antioxidants and vitamins, right? So eat the rainbow and then get your food or your meat naturally raised, and not with the big word natural across the top, because that means nothing, right? But actually naturally raised. Look for grass-fed, look for pasture-raised, or just get to know the farmer and ask him, hey, do you grass-feed your cows? Do you grass-finish your cows? Do they actually get to free range out there? Are they grubbing for bugs? Are your chickens like eating small animals? My parents' chickens catch mice in their backyard? It's like, I never knew that. I didn't grow up around chickens. My parents moved to a farm after I moved out. And they're like, we're going to raise chickens now. Now they're talking about getting, beef cows and milk cows. And I'm like, okay, guys, this is great, but you're in Michigan. That's not going to help me out much. Yes, ma'am.
Automatically assumed that they were getting good natural
Hmm.
produce. And there's a lot of difference between Nebraska plains hunting
Hmm.
and other
North
places
Dakota,
like
Montana,
Idaho.
Idaho. Yeah, I would say that in general, I would trust a hunter that killed a deer in Nebraska more than just a McDonald's cheeseburger,
Oh, yeah.
because that deer had the opportunity to eat whatever it wanted, and so it was able to use its own, nature to determine what it needed. And so while yes, sometimes the pesticide sprayed corn was one of the best options or most prevalent options out there, it wasn't the whole thing the whole year. And most of its life, it was eating a fairly balanced diet. So you're right, but yeah, yeah, of course, getting from a hunter from the Great White North is going to be way better for you than the alternatives. But I would still say that venison in general, unless they start farming venison, which I hope not, it's going to be a big step in the right direction away from McDonald's or Wendy's or even just a local restaurant here. So natural sweetener options. The best natural sweetener is going to be a whole fruit. If you want sugar, get actual sugar cane. Just get it. If you want honey, get the honeycomb. Try not to separate it from its source. That's the best sweetener because that your body handles that the best. Your next best are your low glycemic options. Things like stevia, things like monk fruit are going to be really good because those are naturally available in nature, right? You go out and you pick a stevia leaf off of the stevia plant, you put it in your mouth, it tastes sweet, right? Doesn't mean you can't overdose on it. Same thing with monk fruit. Monk fruit is actually very hard to eat. It's very fibrous. So extracting that erythritol actually makes it a little bit more dangerous for you, but it's still a much better step and lower glycemic in there. But it is going to still have that insulin response. From there, your natural sweeteners like honey and what's the other one? Raw maple syrup, the grade B maple syrup. Those are going to be a little bit better for you than things like table sugar. And the less processed you get the honey, and the less processed you get the maple syrup, the less inflammatory it's going to be. But it's going to create that insulin response. You have to be wary of really anything sweet, especially when you're talking about insulin and inflammation in your body. So this is how you get prepared though. When you're thinking about the holiday season, when you're thinking about how do I win this battle, these are steps that I make that I try to take every time I know I'm going to a holiday party. Step number one, eat before I go. I lost the battle last Wednesday night because I didn't eat. Like when I didn't eat supper beforehand, I already lost. I had so many holiday cookies. Like you guys wouldn't, you'd be so sad. Dr. Jake. I looked around to see if any of you guys are there. It's like, okay. I hope so. I hope somebody would have rescued me. But it's the best line of defense. If you can eat something in advance and get a full stomach, like, fill yourself up with salad, or even if it's not 100% healthy, if you need to stop by a grocery store and just pick up something that's good, even a wrap that's mostly salad and a better source of meat or a better source of dairy is just going to help set you up for success, right? Win the battle in the grocery store, win the battle at the dinner table, so that you don't have to be tempted by whatever's there. It was a big deal for me when I was able to stop myself from taking the free donuts at church, right? Because they're there, it's free food, and it's like this poverty mentality that you just got to eat whatever's out there in front of you. It's not all good. It's not all for you. There are other people that can benefit from that more than you can. Next thing is plan ahead. So oftentimes we know what's going to be there, right? Especially if it's a family gathering. If you're going home for family Christmas or family Thanksgiving, you know what those dishes are going to be. And so you make a plan. It's like, well, I haven't had great grandma's coleslaw, even though I know she puts marshmallows, loads it up with sugar in 3 years. I need to have some of that. But make a plan. Say, I'm going to have 1 tablespoon. That's it. I just want to taste. I just want to take it. I'm going to have this much turkey, and I'm going to have this much mashed potatoes and this much sweet potato casserole, and I'm going to leave room for a small slice of pumpkin pie, or I'm going to bring the pumpkin pie so I can make it with the good stuff, so I know I can eat as much pumpkin pie as I want afterwards, right? If you plan ahead, you're much more likely to succeed. And then, yeah, I already hinted at that. Make a healthy dish and bring it. Like, and really, if you've got a family, make a healthy dish that you know that they will love and they'll want to splurge on. So even if you can't eat before you go, there is a safe landing space, right? You can hang out at that area of the snack table and be like, I can eat all of this stuff. Candy some pecans with some, erythritol and some sea salt. Put a little cinnamon on them or some pumpkin spice and bake them at 350 for 30 minutes. It's fantastic. It's great. It's lower glycemic and it comes with the nuts that have the protein in it. It's not hard to do. Do I make house calls? I do, but those are usually for chiropractic. My baking fee is far more expensive than my chiropractic fee. So yeah, make that healthy dish and bring it. Maxliving.com is loaded with healthy recipes, and there's a holiday cookbook out there right now too. So you definitely want to get your hands on that. So the other thing to do is we need to address nutrient deficiencies. One of the biggest ways to make yourself inflamed and set yourself up for disease is not having the right nutrients, because that by itself creates inflammation. Your tissues start to break down and they become inflamed themselves. And so about 6 years ago, one of our doctors in our network, he was one of the coaches, so top level coach, he contracted, I believe it was multiple myeloma, very aggressive form. Doctors gave him 6 weeks left to live. And so he said, no, I'm going to beat this. I know that the cause is the cure. And so he started doing all sorts of advanced testing that as a network, Max Living haven't really gone into yet because we were so focused on the chiropractic side of things. And he started doing blood work. And what he found and what we've now turned into daily essentials is that Americans, and him specifically, but most Americans as well, over 90% of us are deficient in all of these. The multivitamin, yeah, if we could put everything just in that one capsule, we would. So it's the best place to start because it covers the most bases. But yeah, the things that we put in there are the things that Americans are deficient in because of the standard American diet and our inflammatory lifestyle. Next would be the optimal omega, and that's just because the average American is so far out of whack. So putting yourself onto an omega supplement that helps you to rebalance that. That takes the omega-6s and omega-3s in a high enough dose that it's going to have an impact on your overall inflammation levels. Magnesium is huge. It's necessary in hundreds of bodily processes, and over 90% of us are deficient in it. B vitamins, because of our stress levels, we burn through them so fast it's like we don't even have them. It's like our body doesn't even know what to use them for. Our generation is more stressed than any generation before. And probably the most important one at this time of year is vitamin D3 because we're not getting sunshine. The sunshine matters. It's so much more than vitamin D3. If I was to say, what supplement should all of us have on a daily basis that we're not getting enough of? It's sunshine. It's not even a vitamin because of how important it is for sleep, how important it is for energy, the way that our mitochondria deal with creating more energy in our bodies. It relies on sunshine. But one of the things that we can measure is vitamin D3. And we know that when you're deficient in vitamin D3, it sets you up and it just increases your mortality rates so dramatically. It's one of the most important ones for the immune function. And then we had throw some probiotics in there specific to vitamin D3 absorption, because if you don't get those, then the vitamin D3 is just going to pass right through your system. It needs that probiotic, and it also needs to be in the presence of a healthy fat. So that's why we put them all together and have you take them with food so that you're absorbing it and digesting it very well. The other thing that we do to combat the inflammation is to help to balance our blood sugar. So there's more than this that you can do, especially if you're dealing with high insulin levels. But getting on a max omega-3 supplement as opposed to the optimal omega supplement, this will help to lower that ratio back into a right relationship, not slowly, gradually, but quickly. right? So if you know that I'm just eating processed food all the time, my oils are rancid, they're really bad. That, McDonald's is my favorite burger. I'm eating it 2, 3 times a week. You need to get you on the max omega-3 until you get a chance to balance out your lifestyle to get that inflammatory marker down. And so that just goes with your lifestyle. If you're eating healthy, if you're staying on the core plan or the advanced plan, the optimal omega is better. But if you're not there yet, the max omega is going to help you get there. The next one is the max greens. So we talked about the berries and we talked about the greens, the leafy greens. So this is that. These are juiced, but they also come with the fiber as well. It's not removing the fiber from it entirely. A single scoop of this is worth about 5 servings of vegetables. Now, I don't want you to replace your vegetables with this. I want this to be a tool to help get you there to the point where you're eating 5 or more servings of vegetables a day. And your serving size is the size of your fist. So obviously mine is bigger than most of yours, right? Because I work with my hands all day. And some of you aren't even getting this much vegetables on a daily basis. In fact, the average American male is getting less than 1 serving of vegetables on a daily basis. We're doing a great job with this. We're getting less than 1 serving of vegetables on a daily basis. And then the next one is curcumin. And curcumin is loaded with antioxidants. In fact, it is one of the most potent antioxidants that helps to lower and decrease your inflammation markers. This one, ours, it actually comes with something called quercetin. And the quercetin is synergistic with the curcumin to getting in the cells and decreasing the inflammation faster. Quercetin is also synergistic with vitamin C and zinc in getting them in the cells more quickly. And so curcumin, quercetin, vitamin C, and vitamin D3 actually all work together to help support each other. If you're low in zinc, your vitamin D needs to be higher. If you're low in vitamin D, your vitamin C needs to be higher, and so on. So getting that combination there actually works really well. So this bundle here tonight is 20% off if you saw that on your order form for that. But then the anti-inflammatory mindset matters as well. So what's one of the biggest things that'll spike your blood sugar that's not actually named sugar? Yeah. So yeah, why is it coffee? Cortisol. What is cortisol released in the presence of? Stress. Right? So coffee is actually good for you because of the amount of antioxidants that it has, but coffee has so much caffeine that it stimulates your adrenal glands to release cortisol in excess, and cortisol will actually stimulate your blood sugar. It'll kick up your blood sugar. It'll turn you into a sugar burner, which means that your brain will flip a switch and say, I need more sugar. And it'll start taking some of the fat cells in your body and turning them into sugar until your blood sugar is flooded, basically. And your insulin levels get out of whack without even consuming any sugar, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Every time, and if I drink before I realized it,
Mm-hmm.
being good sweet, I drank too much one day, and I ended up with the ambulance in my living room, and they thought they had rebalanced, and then after I'd been leaving, I came again because what was up?
Yeah. Yep. You go too high, then it drops too low. It usually does not, because it's typically the caffeine that creates that response, right? So if you're drinking the water processed decaf, then it doesn't. But if you're drinking conventional decaf, it may still, because the pesticides, if it's conventional, if it's not organic coffee, or yeah, then it's going to have not pesticides, but the chemical that they use to make it decaffeinated is actually a known carcinogen, and that may create enough stress on your adrenal glands to have that same effect on it. So yes, decaf coffee won't create the cortisol effect, but you want it to be water processed decaf and not just conventional decaf. Yeah. Yeah, just run the water through it, right? Yeah. Yeah. And if you were to measure it, yeah, I haven't seen a study on it, but I would guess that regular coffee would have more nutrients and more antioxidants in it because you're not processing it further. But if you're trying to avoid the caffeine and still enjoy the coffee, then the water processed decaf is going to be a better bet for you and still have some antioxidants.
Both of my grandchildren
Mhm.
were born low weight.
Yeah.
And they sent them home.
Yeah. Well, and asthmatics too, they'll give them coffee if they don't have access to albuterol or the steroid inhalers because of the stress response that it creates in the body actually is a vasodilator where everything opens up and they can breathe better. And so it's like one of those things where if you know how it works, you can actually use it to your advantage. But it's also it can create inflammation. Yeah, I mean, so when we're talking about anti-inflammatory mindset, though, we're actually talking about stress. And so when we're doing things in our life, we know that when we focus on stress, stress is actually going to grow. So stress management is a no-go. We don't manage our stress because that just means that you're constantly going to live a life full of stress. So instead, we're going to create a state of peace management or peace creation. We're going to create peace in our lives. And so you have to know yourself well enough to be able to do that on your own. I can't know that for you. I know for me, when I turn to God in prayer, that's one of the best ways for me to get that stress level down. When I know that someone else is in control and I don't have to manage it all, that helps me. For other people, running is a great stress reliever, right? It's a way for them to create peace in their life. Some people need more control to create that peace in their life. So know yourself and you'll be able to do that. So yeah, it really is the most stressful time of year. We know this because we can measure it in heart attacks. You have more heart attacks in the month of December than any other time. I believe it's a 5% uptick in the rate of heart attacks. And it's not because, of genetics. There's nothing about December that says that you have to have a heart attack in December again. But what is it? It's stress and inflammation. So we have to not focus on the stress. We have to create peace. So here's some tips for this. So number one, communicate your expectations with family. When I go home for holidays, right, and I have to drive 13 hours away to go home, I have to let my family know what I expect in advance, or else they're just going to dominate my time and I'm going to be dragged along for however much time I'm there. Right. And I may or may not like whatever it is that they're doing. And so I communicate my expectations with my wife. We set those expectations in place, and then we communicate them with my mom, with my dad, with my sisters, and with their families as well. So they know how much time to expect and have me. I don't want to rob them of that time, but I also have to protect myself and not allow that stress to be created. If there's certain topics you don't want to discuss, it may be wise to say, not just saying, oh, I don't want to talk politics or religion, right? It may be like, the situation with great grandma. I know we need to deal with that as a family. Just now, it's not a good time for me. So can we table that discussion until we get together for Easter, until we can get on a Zoom call or just a phone call? Prioritize sleep. One of the biggest ways to increase your stress hormones is to not get enough rest. We're already as Americans sleep deprived. We should be getting 7 to 9 hours, and most of us are getting less than 6. And so we should be focusing on and prioritizing sleep. Now, don't stress out over not sleeping enough, right? You ever lay there with your eyes like, I need to sleep. No, but do prioritize and make the time for it. And then, force yourself to rest as well. Set aside time with your family to enjoy Christmas activities. And so for those of you that have closer family members, for me, that's my immediate family. I want to spend more time with my kids. We're taking 4 whole days and it's just going to be us. And we're going to take it slow. We're going to make hot cocoa. I'm going to buy some less unhealthy marshmallows and the kids are going to have a blast with that. Hopefully it'll snow a little bit. We can get outside and play in the snow. If not, we'll walk to the park or we'll take a bike ride, but we'll do this stuff together as a family. Plan holiday events ahead of time. Don't just walk into stuff, plan ahead, plan in advance. Don't get stuck, and then never be afraid to ask for help, whether that's just sitting down with me or Cheryl or Matt for 5 or 10 or 15 or 30 minutes and talking through stuff, or letting your pastor know that you need to talk, or calling up your best friend and saying, hey, I need to talk through this with somebody, or I just need somebody to listen, or Doesn't matter. We're here to help you. There's lots of outlets. If you need professional help, we'll help connect you with somebody that's good with the professional help. The other thing we need to do is check our home for toxins. When most of our lives are lived in our house, this matters so much more. And we did talk a lot about this during the immune makeover. So I'm not going to hammer this hard, but we're in a time of year where we have to be inside a lot. It's just so cold. We can't live outside like we can in the summer. Like summertime, you can go camping and sleep outside and get in nature more. But in the winter months, we're stuck in the air itself is 20 times more toxic inside than it is outside. The HVAC systems, no matter how often you clean them, they're just going to hold more stuff that's toxic to us. And then our cleaners, if we're using things like bleach and ammonia, we're breathing that in. It's toxic to our nervous system. Part of the reason why flu season is right now is because we are stuck inside. Yeah, if we get outside more often, that matters. But if we can get away from the toxic stuff that is inside of our homes as well, new construction, 4 times more toxic than old construction. It's not because there's any difference in the building materials. Yes, there's some, but it's just the new stuff off gases. And so we want to avoid that as much as possible. So check your home. So other things that you can do is you can help support your liver. We talked last month about N-acetylcysteine, the pro-NAC supplement. One of the best things you can do to support your liver and helping your body to detox is getting that pro-NAC, because it helps to build glutathione, which is one of the most potent antioxidant that your body can have. But it can produce it. It's not an essential amino acid. It's one that your body can make. You just need the N-acetylcysteine in order to build it. You need that precursor in there. So getting those high protein chains get in there. This is part of the reason why I love a good bone broth cleanse several times a year. So I didn't go into that Good Life Halvesy expecting to do a bone broth cleanse, but it accidentally became part of my recovery because it's all I wanted to help with the recovery. I wasn't craving heavy foods. I just wanted that bone broth. And it has so much protein and it has so much healthy fats. It has so much collagen. And I made it with turmeric and black pepper and sea salt and put these nutrients in there. I sprinkled some oregano in there and some onion and some garlic. And so it had a lot of this stuff that my body needed in there. It was super anti-inflammatory. And if you do like a bone broth cleanse for, somewhere between 1 and 3 days, where that's the only thing you're taking in 3 or 4 times a year, it doesn't have to be a lot, but pick 3 or 4 weekends a year to just go on a bone broth cleanse. Not only will it help you to detox better, it'll also help your digestion, it'll help your immune system, and ultimately you'll become a healthier person by getting a lot of the crap out. And guess what? When you do a cleanse like that, it also counts as a fast, and you can actually connect to God a little better when you take food out of your schedule. Take that time and actually focus just on God and what He wants for your life. So it ends up being a mental cleanse too. The other thing that helps with inflammation is exercise. And so we talked about this a lot in the immunity makeover with how exercise helps with the immune system. And the main thing is just pure blood flow. If you want to lower inflammation, get that blood flowing so it can get stuff out, right? Get blood to where it needs to go. Let it get circulating, get those white blood cells where they need to go, get those nutrients where they need to go, and it'll actually help do that. Now, there are different types of exercise. And so Marcia's been to our workout on Saturday and seen, the slow kind of exercise. That's a beautiful kind of exercise for regaining your balance and regaining your flexibility. But if you want to increase blood flow, one of the best ways to do it is something that we call max T3. And so most of you got access to this when you started as a patient. But max T3 is really just a high intensity interval training that focuses on the amount of time that you're spending, the type of exercise that you're doing, and the tempo at which you do it. And so the goal with the max T3 is to get your heart rate up as high as it can go for super short periods of time. So like think 15 to 20 seconds at a time, getting your heart rate up at 100% of its max capacity to get more oxygen in there, to get more blood going, get more carbon dioxide out. Your body detoxes faster when you do this, but it also creates a metabolic effect that actually ends up stimulating that detox process, the immune system process, and decreasing inflammation while you're doing it as well. But the real goal of everything that we're doing here isn't just health, it's function. Health is great. Health is a noble goal. There's a lot of healthcare providers out there that their only focus is on health. My goal for each and every one of you is that you achieve 100% optimal function, or as close as you can physically possibly get. This is why we have our hour and a half workshops, once a month. That's why we put all these resources into making sure that you have access to people like Cheryl and people like Matt and myself as much as possible, so that you can really get this in alignment. I honestly think this picture, it represents more where we're at than where we should be. We've so separated our mind, body, and spirit. And really, this happened in the 1800s. You had scientific man discovering evolution and saying, this is the way that this has to be. And the spirit has nothing to do with that. We'll leave that to the church. And really, the mind stuff and that's just witchcraft anyways. We'll give that to the psychologist. And from that point on, our healthcare system has divided mind, body, and spirit. The medical doctors, as much as they were able to specialize in and figure out that all of these organs that we used to say weren't necessary, now we know 100% of them are necessary. We should not be cutting them out left and right. They still weren't addressing the spiritual side or the mental side. When we know that, if you take 100 people and you line them up and they all have a torn meniscus and cut all of them open, cut their knees open, and only repair half of them, and the other half you tell them that you repaired it, they'll recover at the same rate. Because they believed that they were getting the necessary procedure done. The mind is a huge part of this, but the spirit is a huge part of this as well. I don't do the healing. And when I adjust you, I'm moving a bone. There's nothing about moving a bone that provides any healing at all whatsoever. God designed us to heal. That's a spiritual thing. And really, it's the spinal cord that's the house of that. If you want to put anything in this spot right here, call it your spinal cord. Call it your nervous system, because it's where mind, body, and spirit come together and communicate and coordinate things. We are 100% spiritual. We are 100% physical, and we are 100% mental. You can't have one of those without the other. It doesn't work the way. And the more you try to separate it, the more unhealthy you become, the more room for disease is built up. And so that's where the spine comes into play, because the spine is such an important role in this, not just in protecting your central nervous system, but what we found in the research is that when one of these vertebrae is out, it creates this condition in the brain called dyskinesia, where the brain no longer has the ability to know where you are in space, not to the same level as when it's in alignment. When the hips don't move as well, it disrupts the brain, and now your balance is off. It's like, I'm not pinching the nerve that goes to your inner ear. I'm not slamming into your cerebellum, but because the hips aren't moving properly, my brain can no longer deal with and respond to the things that they're supposed to. And guess what happens there? Well, it's not just the cerebellum, and it's not just the vestibular cortex that are impacted. The prostate starts to suffer. The lower digestive tract starts to suffer. People start to have trouble reproducing just because their joint position sense went out of place. And so that spine actually needs to be functioning and moving properly. It's like a sheet, a coat of armor that covers your central nervous system from head to tailbone, right? It's designed to move so that you can interact with life and do life and be able to touch your toes and pick things up off of the ground and reach things high up on the shelf. But when it can't, it's not that creates a disease process. Sure, subluxation is a disease process on its own that will lead to other disease processes. More than that, it robs you of the ability to experience life to the full. And in John 10:10, Jesus said, I have come that you may have life and have it to the full or abundantly. Yeah, right? And when your body is not responding well to that, then you won't. It's kind of like arthritis, right? So we talked about a joint being out of alignment will degenerate at a rate of 7% per year. That's Wolff's Law. God can heal that. He created mechanisms naturally, physically, in the physical realm that will heal that. Just the physical side of things. If you realign the joint, it will heal. spiritually. He can also speak life into you or speak life through some other person into you and realign that. He can do whatever he wants. He's God, right? Mentally, if we believe something to be true, it becomes far more likely. Where two or more are gathered in my name and ask anything, right? There's a power in the collective mindset as well, right? We can't ignore these other components just because it doesn't make sense yet. We're all on this path. We're all growing. We're all getting there. But it's unified in that nervous system. So we have to take care of it. We have to. If we're not taking care of it, it is going to fall apart. And as much as I'd like to say, yeah, no, if you're not getting chiropractic care, you're going to die earlier. That's not true. But you won't experience life the way that God intended it to if you're walking around with those subluxations in your spine. And so, yeah, it'll lead to a healthy inflammatory response. You'll get inflammation with a healthy spine because that is what it's supposed to do, right? But if you're experiencing any of those issues, guess what? It's a sign that there is subluxation in that spine, in the communication between the brain and the body. We don't want that to happen. We don't want those things to come up. Those are signs that things have been out of alignment, not just for a little bit of time, but for a lot of time. For it to get to the point where it's symptomatic, for your spine to start to create issues that are so much that they create a symptom, that's been there for 2 decades usually. And so we don't want to leave it there at all. Anytime it gets there at all is a sign that it's been there for way too long. Yeah, so headaches, menstrual problems, high blood pressure, depression, numbness and tingling, sciatica, low back pain, neck pain, dizziness, fatigue, acid reflux, food intolerances, allergies and asthma, ear infections, frequent colds, constipation, attention or focus problems, sleep problems, eczema, and skin problems. Yes, and that's the short list, right? Because what does the nervous system control? All function in your body. For your heart to beat, for your lungs to breathe, for a cut on your leg to heal, signals have to run from the brain, down the spinal cord, out the nerves, to every organ, cell, and tissue in your body. It doesn't happen any other way. We know that because if we sever the brainstem, all connection stops. What happens if I shift the bones out of position just a little bit at the brainstem? Well, now what happens to every organ, cell, and tissue below? It decreases in function. If we hit a nerve there, what happens to the sinuses? Well, they don't function properly. They might flare up. You might get sinus pressure. You might get a sinus infection. It's not connected to the brain, so it can't even tell your immune system what to do properly. We get the nerve going out to the inner ear. Now, we might have balance issues. We might have hearing issues. We might have ringing in our ear. We go down a little bit more. We hit the middle of the neck. Yeah, we could get neck pain. We could get muscle cramps. We could get tension there. We could have thyroid issues. We go down a little further, and this is where this next slide comes in. My dad. All right, so everybody here's a patient. Everybody here has heard the story of my dad, how he beat congestive heart failure by changing the 5 essentials, right? By reducing his stress, by getting his spine back in alignment, by changing the way that he ate, by changing the way he exercised, by detoxifying his life. He was able to go from here to here. He was able to take his x-rays to this point, from a point where he had over 20 pounds of stress going right across these nerves as they went out to his heart, into his lungs, creating that congestive heart failure. He got it back here. And then he was run over by a tractor last January, right? Most of you have heard this story. He survived, no damage to anything, except he came out of it and his blood pressure was, his systolic over diastolic, right? It was 200 for his systolic pressure. Didn't respond well to the blood pressure meds. So he wasn't taking them. They made him feel like just, ugh. And so almost a year and a half later, or almost 2 years later, no, where are we at? Year and a half. He came to visit me over Thanksgiving and I got a new x-ray on him. So some things are on here are better, right? Head forward posture went from 29.5 down to 27.5. But some things on here are worse. He was at 29 here. This should be 18. This one went up to 31. This one was 16 out of 18, pretty close. Now it's at 14 out of 18. This one should be less than 10. It was 14, now it's 19. Putting pressure around the brainstem up here. This part right here is starting to bend back the wrong way, where that whole thing was coordinated in a 23-degree curve. Now it's 20 degrees. Anytime you put, you take the curve and you lose it by half, it creates that pathological tension that stretches it out, lengthening it by as much as 7 centimeters, right? That'll actually demyelinate the spinal cord. And what else changed? He developed a scoliosis in his low back from the way that the tractor ran over his pelvis, right? And so there's nothing in his life that changed. Here, he was run over by a tractor. It didn't break anything. It didn't rupture any organs. It bruised some tissues. But a year and a half later, he should be back to normal if everything's the same. But it didn't leave it the same. His spine changed. His spine was damaged, not broken, not ligament damage. Nothing's unstable. It healed, but it healed out of position and put stress on his central nervous system. And so I was actually able to sit down with him over Thanksgiving and put him on a protocol to help him rebuild himself, to get his heart healthy again. And yeah, there were some things he wasn't doing that he should have been. Who here in the room can't say that? Right? Yeah, holiday parties and Dr. Jake, that's me. Yeah.
That once you got the spine corrected
Mm-hmm.
and everything's looking pretty good, the normal healthy spine produces inflammation.
Just
Is
like
that what you said?
healthy inflammation in response to damaged tissues.
What's healthy inflammation?
Healthy
I don't
inf-
remember what you said.
Spraining your ankle, stepping off a curb, is healthy inflammation. Unhealthy inflammation is stepping off that curb over and over and over, right? Or sugar, 350 pounds a year, or we'll even just say the Coke once a day. Yeah, that'll do that as well. And so in my dad's case, yeah, his heart needs to be inflamed to deal with the stress that he feels worse on the blood pressure lowering medication. The blood pressure is not the problem. The problem in his case is what's going on in the spine. Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to say this out loud.
Yeah.
So I've been corrected.
Mhm.
It's going wonderfully. It's
Yes.
going beautifully. And then I feel my mouth starting to swell
Yeah.
and other tissues starting to swell, almost like I have allergies.
Yeah.
I said no to that.
Mhm.
I'm having that.
Yeah.
But that was a normal response.
Yeah. Let's
To-
say you had, I'm just going to go hypothetically, right? So it's not a response to the correction. Let's say you have a food sensitivity, but your immune system wasn't communicating fully with your nervous system because of the misalignments in the spine. We correct the nervous system. Now the immune system can have an appropriate response to the food sensitivity and allow us a sign that something's not quite right. It was still destroying you internally, right? That food sensitivity was destroying the gut, destroying the immune system, but it was doing it in a very sinister manner because the communication between the brain and the body was disconnected. And so now when we connect to all the tissues, sometimes symptoms come back. The crazy story. So I was still in chiropractic school at the time, went home for my first Thanksgiving, no, first Christmas after I had started chiropractic. So about a year. So long enough, I had just learned how to start adjusting. And so I brought my brand new chiropractic table with me. I'm gonna adjust everybody, right? Everybody's gonna feel so good. This is gonna be a great holiday. I start adjusting people. Everybody starts getting sick, like vomiting all over the place. And I was like, are you guys okay? Like, how's the adjustment? They're like, it's a great adjustment. It's a great adjustment. But what had happened was they had become so sick because of the misalignments in their spine that their immune system was not having an appropriate response. And so that food poisoning, because we had Chinese on Christmas Eve. We always do Chinese for Christmas Eve. It's a family tradition. The food poisoning, it hit everybody. And they all vomited. And Kirsten and I, because we were making all these healthy choices, we said, we're actually just going to do like the salad. We're going to order the salad. We got the salad and everybody's house was eating the egg rolls and the chow mein and, all the different stuff. And it happened to have food poisoning in it. And so they needed to throw up. Their body couldn't throw up because of the disconnect. And then the adjustment released it. And they were all sick for the rest of the week. So we left early. And we took care of everybody. Like, okay, we're going to go now. Nobody wants to hang out with us.
So it was like me.
Yeah.
You had me coming in for that.
Yeah.
And started the exercise.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And we're on the right path,
we're on the
right? But what happens when we get you to here, right? If we can,
Mm.
does that mean we stop coming? No, because what's going to happen? Gravity. I mean, let's say you live the perfect life in the perfect environment for the rest of your life. Gravity still happens. You're still going to come down more and more. You're never going to look at a smartphone again, right? Or if it is, it's always up here with your ServiGuard on, right? It's always up here. No, gravity's going to get us. Gravity's going to get us. And so chiropractic, what we're going to do is every 2 weeks for the rest of your life, we're going to check your spine. And when I don't adjust it, when I don't need to adjust it, you're not going to get charged a thing. But when you do need adjustment, we're going to adjust it because I want you to experience life to the full. I don't want it to be limited. I don't want that inflammation. As far as inflammation is concerned, there's one nerve in your body that controls inflammation more than any other nerve. It's called your vagus nerve.
Really?
The vagus nerve. This nerve exits off at the top. It's this blue one here. And you can see how many different places it goes. And what they've done, and this is really cool research that came out while I was in chiropractic school, is they started experimenting with electromagnets and stimulating that vagus nerve with an electric magnet. And so they would take about this part, so somewhere around here in the neck, they would surgically insert an electromagnet in the neck, or in that vagus nerve in the neck. Then they'd give you a magnet to just rub over it. And you rub it over it as many times as you wanted during the day. And they were curing all sorts of autoimmune conditions with this. They were curing cancers with this, and it was breakthrough. But how much better is it to just take the pressure off the nerve and allow the brain to stimulate that nerve as much as it wants to? And we see the same thing in chiropractic. When we take pressure off the vagus nerve, restore that balance, we see those same cancers and those same autoimmune conditions go away because the inflammation that's being generated, not by the vagus nerve, but because of the lack of information that's coming from the vagus nerve down to those organs, is interrupted. There's a disconnect. And so that inflammation also comes from the nervous system. I mean, almost more so than any other area of the body. Yes.
Something else that we talked about when we started because of the medications
Mhm.
that doctors prescribe this compound the problem.
Yeah.
The other thing you talked to me about this medications is what they have to do. Like they told me stay in a recliner, sit in a recliner.
Yeah.
And you explained to me one of the worst things that could have done.
Yeah.
And the other thing was the doctors.
Yeah. I know.
Why the recliners and the walkers?
So you think about the position of the spine, the ideal position of the spine. Yes, you should be able to go into this position. But what happens when you're in this position? Your spine's out of position. It stretches out the spinal cord. The more time you spend there, it retrains the muscles, ligaments, and tendons to hold that position. When you're in a walker, are you straight and tall up like this? No, everybody's down like this. They have head forward posture. They have that old lady or old man hunching. That condition, hyperkyphosis, is one of the best indicators, best predictors we have of heart attacks. That head forward posture combination. It's like,
Just tell me.
yeah, so
Actually, part of it.
every inch your head goes forward adds 10 pounds of pressure to this section of the spine. Bowling ball, do you want it out here when you're carrying around, or do you want it in here? You want it back. And that's the exact thing that happens when you're walking on a walker. And when you're watching TV in your recliner, right, your head's out here, you got your cell phone down here, right? And so even just in the Times, they did a focus on this as well. They said sitting's the new smoking. Just a couple years ago, I want to say about 3 years ago, they did a whole issue, cover story. And what they found is that when you sit for an hour or more, it takes 14 minutes off of your life expectancy. For comparison, smoking a single cigarette takes 11 minutes off of your life expectancy. Why would it do that? Well, when you sit, you go from a 45-degree curve in your low back. In a healthy spine, you just go from 45 to 35. 45, 35. And what that does is the same thing when you lose the curve in your neck. It puts a pathological tension here. They saw increases in digestive issues, increases in reproductive issues, increases in bladder, prostate, and kidney issues, adrenal disorders. And they didn't know why. They're like, what's the connection? Why is sitting doing it? It's exercise independent. Didn't matter if people were moving around or not. It's because of what it does to the spine and the nervous system. Yes.
When I talked to a doctor about the flu, they said, well, Medicaid, Medicare, they'll pay for recliner if you have swelling to get your feet up.
Yep.
But you know what? You can put that darn thing with your head all the way down and your feet all the way up.
Yeah.
But because of the pillow they have back there, your hips
Still forward. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And Medicare they'll pay for a walker like this, but they make walkers that put you up like this, but Medicare won't pay for it.
Yeah.
They won't.
Will got killed
Yeah.
when I went home and I tore a hole in the middle of that pillow.
Yeah.
So that I could at least put my head.
Yeah. And so you wonder why isn't Medicare, why isn't our healthcare system paying for us to get healthy? It's a total waste of money, right? Well, it's because of the definitions, the guidelines. Medicare guidelines state that any care that seeks to prevent disease, promote or enhance the quality or longevity of life is not considered medically necessary and therefore will not be covered. Insurance has never paid for anything that actually got you healthy. They'll never pay for you to get here. They'll pay for you to get here. And there are some things where they can increase function, and there are some times when it's absolutely necessary. But insurance is not there to get you healthy. So if we want to be healthy, we have to be the ones that are proactive. We have to do it mind, body, spirit. We have to do it 5 essentials. We have to be the ones that make that decision to be healthy. And I applaud each and every one of you that's in this room because you guys are the ones that are learning how to do it. People that aren't in this room that chose, they were too busy tonight. The stress levels were way too high. Maybe it was the best choice for them not to be here. I'm not judging anybody that can't be here. Yeah. Who knows when they can't come in? But they're not going to benefit from this the way that the people that were here in this room, that felt the spirit of this room, that saw the truths and heard the truths being talked about today. And so, there's some action steps. So we can't just take the information, right? The information is knowledge. The application of that knowledge is wisdom, right? So hopefully you'll learn some things. Some of you have been here to so many workshops that you relearn some things. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Getting down to bed was huge, but then what you haven't talked about yet, not just your pillow.
The home exercises, yeah.
Well, and even laying.
Just sleeping.
And sleeping.
Yeah.
And just sometimes you get so rigid in that you don't turn, you don't, and all of that, like you told me before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very, very
And so whether it's applying the home exercises, starting to get good at that, or it's saying, okay, I need to cut one of these out a day, or maybe I need to not go to Starbucks for my drinks every day, or it's like, man, I should really look at my baked beans and maybe make some of those my own, or whatever it is. I don't want you guys doing everything I talked about tonight. That's overwhelming. I got to where I am today in my health journey by taking 1 to 3 things out of every talk I ever went to. And I started as a patient, just like you guys. I would sit just like you guys. I would take notes just like you guys. And I also happened to be a student at the same time. So my education was a little bit accelerated because it had to be, because I was paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to get there quick, right? You guys are not going to get there. I've never charged a patient in my life $100,000. But if I ever did, I would still save you money off of that first year that I saved you in the retirement home. Right? Yes, ma'am.
Just 5 minutes on pillows, sleeping, and the neck rolls.
Yeah. Oh, so the sleeping on the neck rolls?
Yeah. About the pillows.
Yeah.
You were mentioning pillows
And
something you had said to them.
yeah,
Pillows.
So yeah, I mean, if we're going to go into the sleep conversation, really, there's no healthy position to sleep on a pillow. There's no healthy pillow in the world, because really we're designed to sleep on a flat surface on our backs. But what happens when you have an unhealthy spine, if it doesn't have the curves it needs, they just collapse onto the floor. And so what we did is we designed some rolls, the 3.5 inch and the 2.5 inch rolls to put under the neck and low back and support your spine, even on a mattress that gives a little bit to hold those rolls while you're laying flat on your back. And so that helps to support a healthy nervous system even while you sleep. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So yeah, first thing, action step, pick your 1 to 3 things. If you haven't written them down yet, take the next minute and write down your 1 to 3 things that you're going to apply tonight. For some of you that, like I said, that's going to be doubling down on the home exercise or the diet stuff. Some of you might need to pick up a couple supplements to help balance your blood sugar. Some of you might have some questions about how to target certain things that are going on in your life. I'm going to stick around for questions. Don't worry, I'm not rushing out of here tonight. I'm going to answer those for you guys. But pick your action steps. If you're not applying this stuff, if you're not creating a goal out of this, then it's almost not worth your time. Yes, I want you to build and I want you to keep coming, but pick something to do, because if we're not doing it, you might as well not even know it, right? That's where wisdom comes in. Second thing is keep coming back. Maybe that's your thing, right? And I know some of you, you've taken big breaks in the past, right? It's okay. It's okay. You chose to come back. And so we do something every single month. Sometimes it's a refresher. Sometimes it's basic information. Sometimes it's deep information. We target something like inflammation, or we target something like the immune system. So just keep looking for those. Our next event is actually an opportunity for the people that weren't here to come learn more about inflammation. And that's going to be our community dinner this coming Monday, so a week from today, at 6:30 p.m. I'm going to buy dinner. The only thing I ask of you guys is bring somebody to it that needs to know more about this. And I'm gonna make it super short, super sweet, just straight to the point, give them some highlights and give them an opportunity to learn more about what we're doing here in the office, and the opportunity to make a choice to start changing the trajectory of their life so that we can get things going. From there, we don't actually know what January looks like yet, because we haven't sat down and planned it yet. We're going to have our annual marketing meeting in about 2 weeks, and we're going to plan out the entire year of events. And so very likely we're going to have a weight loss focus for January. Yeah, focus on metabolism, focus on energy burning, focus on how do you keep that there? Because so many people are setting their New Year's resolutions. By the time we're actually ready to have the class, most of them will have already failed. So be looking for that, not because I expect you guys to fail, because you guys have been equipped, but because your friends and family will have made a decision to start doing things healthier and probably get frustrated by the point that we're there, and we're going to come in and we're going to help lift everybody up. It's going to be a very uplifting seminar. It's usually one of our best of the year, and it's how we like to kick off the year, is that one. Always be on the lookout for the community dinners. We'll have lots of those. If you have any friends or family in Omaha that are just like, man, this is too far away, guess what? I'm in Omaha now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursday mornings, I do practice in Omaha, downtown chiropractic, down almost next to the airport. But I have a partnership now with the Arboretum, which is where one of our patients lives. It's an Emmanuel community, and I'm doing the workshops that I'm doing here on Thursdays after I'm done adjusting. So we're doing about one every 2 months. So I'm just spacing it out. I don't want to overwhelm those guys. I want to get them to learn the opportunity to do that. But if you know friends or family that just don't want to watch online, or they would rather be there in person, they're welcome to come to the Arboretum and consume the same information, the same workshops as well. So do tell people about what's going on here. We'll have upcoming patient appreciation days. If you have anything that you'd like to donate over the Christmas season to People City Mission, we'll collect it. Cheryl and I go out to People City Mission 2 times a month, and I have a drop box right around the corner from my house, so it's not a problem for me to drop stuff off. But it is a season of giving, so let's make sure that we're giving as well. And then connect. I mean, if you haven't jumped on Facebook or YouTube and followed or liked the page or turned on notifications for that, turn them on. Yeah, all this stuff and more I put up there. For those of you that are on TikTok, yeah, because I know this group loves to TikTok. We're on there as well. I'll put some highlights there. So we're going to end. I want to thank you guys for coming. I'm going to stick around for questions, but let me turn off the computers first.